Welcome to StrategyTalk, where the authors and editors discuss news and events with a splash of history. Our host today is Dan Masterson. Joining him is Jim Dunnigan, well-known military author and the Dean of Wargaming. Also, joining today's show is columnist and author retired Colonel Austin Bay.
Welcome, gentlemen. I thought we'd talk a little bit about China and their new sixth-generation aircraft. Of course, we're working on ours, the F-47, and it looks like it's a race to 2035 to see who gets into production first. Although it looks like the F-47 is having some issues. I read this morning that there's two issues with the F-47. One is there are labor disputes at the factory that it's going to be produced at. And the second one is the engines look like they're going to take 2 years longer than they thought they were going to take. Now, China, we don't have much information, but we've got photos of two of their prototypes that have been flying. Jim, what information have you been able to glean on the prototypes and where China is at right now?
Well, apparently they're good aircraft. They're flying. They're building more of them. The big weak spot they have is pilot experience. China has never been in a serious air war. I mean, they go around harassing Taiwan. Some aircraft go to operate in the South China Sea. But beyond that, their pilots are relative newbies. One has to remember that China only entered the, how should I put it, the industrial age, the industrial revolution in the 1980s. And so they've come a long way. And in doing that, some things didn't go right. You can tell from the number of generals and officials that Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, is dismissing. It doesn't look like a very stable government compared to most other countries. The Japanese and South Korea see this as a benefit, as does Taiwan, who I think is probably telling them on the radio, Chinese population, that, we do it better. But be that as it may, China has always been an empire on the verge of another civil war. With the aircraft, the pilot experience, I think, will be the key factor. There's no doubt that they can build planes. I mean, they're the second largest manufacturer on the planet, and it's making them rich. It's also making them vulnerable. If they go to war, there'll be a blockade. Oh, sure, they can go after our aircraft carriers with their missiles, which apparently are working now, but they can't do much for the submarines. Our under-submarine force has long been one of the best in the world. And we've got Virginias and, SSVMs and those two SSGMs. That's a lot of firepower the Chinese can't see until it hits them.
Right. Austin, what are your thoughts on where China's at?
Well, I'm a little bit hesitant to draw some conclusions from something that we've talked about a couple of times, at least once in the last 3 months, which was the brief Indo-Pakistani war. At first, I made the wisecrack, and Jim thought it was funny that who won the latest Indo-Pakistani war, and I said it was China because of performance of Chinese aircraft. And I think it was predominantly J-10s, wasn't it, Jim?
Yes.
The Chinese J-10s. Since then, and there's a remarkable report that Reuters just released that I looked at that said that interviews with Pakistan's chief air marshal and the like that said, well, what we did was integrate all of our, and he didn't put it this way, this is the way I'll put it, all of our sensor systems. And, and Jim's talked about this, written about it, I've written about it, in a kill chain where you've got all sensors, or as many as you can, linked together, and they pick the best platform with the best weapon to engage the particular target or in a particular fight. And now this is what the Pakistanis are claiming they've done. That still doesn't mean that we didn't witness an ad for Chinese technology. And everything Jim just said about the Chinese ability to build aircraft, how rapidly they've learned to do current generation and work on next generation aircraft. And I'll leave Jim to explain what the generations, if he wants to. But the country that, well, really developed integrated air operations to include, attacks on enemy air defenses to prepare offensive strike and defenses, the United States. And again, working with I would say its key NATO nations, United Kingdom put a lot of effort into it as well as, and the Brits may claim we're the first to do it because we integrated optical human beings, radar, and the like to stave off the Nazi air blitz. And yeah, they did that. But where you've got air surveillance aircraft like AWACS and the like, way behind the battlefield, and I'll let Jim get into that, the longer and longer ranges of air-to-air missiles are really put at risk that particular asset. And anti-satellite missiles put at risk satellites, which are another part of this kind of integrated sensor system. But the Pakistanis are claiming that's one of the things that they did. And in an interview with some Indian officers, even though the impression I got out of this Reuters report was that the Indians were much more circumspect in chatting with them, was that after they had figured out what had been done to them, that the Pakistanis had ambushed them, is the way that at least one of the observers put it, and fired these longer range Chinese missiles, which I'll let Jim talk about, but a PL-15 is one of the ones mentioned, is then they went after the Pakistani air defenses, after their sensor systems, in the next series of strikes over the next week before the United States intervened diplomatically. I'll finish this. What I'm saying is, Dan, there are a lot of other factors that go into this. How do you organize your air defenses, your air offenses, air strikes, and how you provide information to the pilots or the drones if you're using drone aircraft, as well as, sure, the airplane platform matters, pilot experience matters, all of it at some level it matters. So I think I've at least given some of the components of what goes into a sophisticated air battle.
Jim, do you have anything to comment?
You asked me earlier about generations. This is a historical curiosity. First generation of fighters was developed right after World War II, during World War II. That was the German ME-262. A lot of our, customers had seen that. The Meteor, the US F-80, and the Russian MiG-15. MiG-15 was not really the first effective Russian jet fighter. That's the MiG-21, and we have an article coming out on that. By the way, the article is all about India getting rid of its last MiG-21s. They're the last major country to do so, so it's twilight time for the MiG-21.
Right, wow.
The third generation aircraft included the F-4 and the MiG-23. The MiG-23 was another great idea that was poorly executed. I mean, the funniest thing, so to speak, about the MiG-23 was during the Cold War, NATO the Americans were monitoring radio traffic, Russian aerial radio traffic, and they heard this senior officer, Air Force officer, piloting a MiG-23, and in the background you could hear the the alert system, which uses a female voice. And the general keeps saying some untimely thing about, Savaka said, or your daughter said, and then he disappeared and crashed. The Russians have always had a hard time getting it right in the aircraft, and the Su-57 is no exception, no difference. Although it's the sixth generation aircraft, it's right now all Russians really have are like MiG-29s and some Sukhoi aircraft. The aircraft manufacturing capabilities is rather minimal right now because of the Ukraine war needs. So the MiG-29 and, like I said, the Sukhoi aircraft are what they have going for them. They talk about exporting the Su-57 to India, but that's going to take a while. Like I said, they have serious production problems, and there's the usual technical problems. On paper, the Su-57 is a respectable aircraft, but, it hasn't really got any experience yet. Until you can slap the combat proven sticker on an aircraft, there will be doubts. And given all the previous Russian failures, it's justified to doubt what exactly the Su-57 is going to become.
So, as far as our fifth generation aircraft, we've got the F-22. Where does the F-35 fit?
It's sixth generation if it works as described. On paper, it looks great, but the reports keep coming out that, there are problems. Again, a lot of what Russia is trying to do with new aircraft and new anything is hobbled by the Ukraine war. It's really drained them of resources, personnel, and basically desire to get involved in side issues like, sixth generation aircraft. So I think we're going to have to wait a year or so to see if the Russians get this cleared up. They talk about continuing the Ukraine war forever, and that may be another way of saying, well, we'll get to the Su-57 would take care of Ukraine. So that means not in our lifetimes.
So going back to China, I've got a couple of pictures of what the two new sixth generation aircraft look like. This is the J-36. It's a diamond wing that has it's probably going to be close to our F-47. Actually, it's probably a little bit heavier, and they're having a hard time classifying it. Some people are saying maybe it's actually a bomber, but in today's world, maybe it can be used as an interceptor and like that. It's actually got a tri-engine configuration, and so that's one of the ones that's been seen flying. The other one is this one, which is our logo's sort of not over the top of it, but this is the J-50. The designation ahead of it, the Shenyang, and the other one, the Chengdu, those are the factories that are manufacturing them. That's not the name of the aircraft yet. This one, actually, they think is being developed to be used either on land or on the aircraft carriers. Now, we've given up our sixth generation aircraft for the aircraft carriers. We're not going to be developing a sixth generation for aircraft carriers. Everything's going into the land-based one. And so this has a lambda wing that they're dealing with. There have been different renditions of the F-47. We haven't seen anything concrete yet. There's supposed to have been a prototype that's been flying out at Area 51. There are no actual photos or anything. The Lockheed and Boeing both had X planes flying that were in competition for the contract, the huge contract that was given to the that the Air Force awarded. So, but again, everybody's racing to 2035 because that's the stake that the Chinese put in the ground that said they're going to be ready by 2035. And so, the United States is trying to be ready by that time too. But like I mentioned before, they've got issues with production. And so we'll have to see. They want to have the first production aircraft roll off at the end of Trump's term, but that nobody knows if that's even going to be possible. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be possible. And we have no information of when the Chinese are actually going to be ready, other than what the Chinese have said. And they say that they believe that they're going to be in production by 2030. So, and that we'll have to see at that point whether the Chinese will meet that. And like you said, Jim, the Russians are way behind. Is there anybody else trying to develop a sixth generation, or the Swedes or anybody else trying to do something in the sixth generation?
Nobody else can afford to develop a sixth generation aircraft.
Okay.
They'll basically buy the F-47 or the Chinese model. Like I say, the Russians are mired in the Ukraine war problems, and that stalls their Su-57 plans.
Yeah, one of the
So
things
the
that
question, Dan, a question comes to mind now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that a sixth generation unmanned platform, and
Right.
who can make that, and who can? And you made the comment. I've read the same things you have about not having a carrier-based sixth generation aircraft. And I took that to mean that the Navy was going to go with an equivalent platform that's a drone, unmanned. So
That's what they've said.
Be able to carry more on board the carrier, since these sixth generation planes are so large. Now that was what my reaction to that. I have not read that. I have not heard that, but it would make a lot of sense to me.
That is something that I saw from a retired fighter pilot. Of course, he was Air Force, so he was saying that the Navy pilots are quite upset, and that the naval strategy is to go with drones. Yeah, one of the things about the F-47, they've been very open about this. It's nothing that's been hidden. They're going to be integrating something called the collaborative combat aircraft, where the F-47 is going to be able to control up to 12 drone aircraft while it's in flight. Now, the drone aircraft don't have the range that the F-47 will have, but I assume that on shorter missions that they'll be able to use those. But they're going with a highly integrated, satellite capabilities, and that they think that one of the things that they may be looking at with the F-47 is they may be going with tandem seating with the weapons officer, because there's going to be so much to do on the platform. But they say it's also going to be able to be flown autonomously without a pilot.
Drones are the future, as being demonstrated in Ukraine, and the Air Force and the Navy are both, looking into converting a lot of their manned assets into drone-based ones. For example, Navy noted the Chinese had a drone carrier, basically an aircraft carrier that had a few helicopters, for transportation, was basically full of drones. They also heard that the Chinese might be developing an autonomous drone carrier. We had that recent incident in Ukraine where Ukraine made an attack using just ground and air drones, and the Russians surrendered. and they were led away by one of the drones. So I think this is more the future of warfare than anything else. And,
Right.
And it depends on how each country reacts. The United States is apparently going, whole hog. I mean, we've supported the Ukrainians generously. They share everything with us, and it's in their interest for us to do well in drones because they're going to be selling them themselves. The technology, Ukrainian engineers can be, go to different countries on assignment to help them set up their drone operations. Drone and AI type autonomy is the way for the future. Like Austin was talking about the drones with the F-47. Those could simply be AI controlled drones. I mean, they're under pilot control or his fire control system control until he sees that opportunity, and then they can say, all right, drone 3, drone 5, go after that, and off they go. The AI is real. I think most of us have seen, examples of that. Not only that, but the AI has been creeping into things like Google. I do a lot of Google searches when I'm writing articles, and I notice it's gotten better and better. It'll zero right in. 10 years ago, I asked a question and I get 2 pages of sites to check out. Now anymore, I just boom, the first thing that pops up, that's what I was looking for. There's a lot of competition going in that area, but it impacts the military because for decades the military has been incorporating new commercial technologies into their aircraft. For example, the AI companion, that female voice, which the Russian general didn't like, but pilots appreciate it. Even the French had theirs. Well, basically, just quietly inform or loudly, depending on the emergency, the pilot, this is happening, that is happening. I mean, the pilot asks me this, AI, what is the status of our fuel? How much longer can we stay up here before we have to go back? Things like that. Practical.
Right.
It's changing warfare.
Now, one of the things that the F-47 is going to use that has been really successful in the F-35 is what they call open architecture, where they're able to upgrade the systems really fast as far as the software goes. And so they're going to have that capability so that they're not locked into the same software and they can't upgrade it very, very rapidly. So they'll be able to upgrade that rapidly. That's one of the things that the pilots have loved about the F-35 is how fast they've been able to upgrade it. So that's going to be taken forward into the F-47.
Yeah, we've been doing that with everything, with ships, submarines, artillery systems, you name it. Modular is the way of the future and has been for decades, but it's actually happening now, and it's going to save a lot of time and hassle and money.
Right.
Yeah, but remember the F-35. The F-35 had a real hard learning curve with that initially. I was going to say teething problems because the objective was always there. But, we're benefiting from that now. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, you don't hear too many pilot complaints about it anymore, although we did lose one recently. I think the pilot was able to eject and he was okay, although ejection is not a fun thing. They get banged up quite a bit when they do that.
Well, consider the alternative.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's there.
Right in. Yeah. So
yeah, we've done several articles on ejection seats. That is a whole other category, but the technology there keeps getting better and better.
Now, one of the things that, and I'm sure China is looking at this too, they've got their own, like you said, drone research going on. They've got their own AI research. I've seen articles where they're a little bit behind us on AI, but they're trying to catch up. I don't know why they're behind us. I think some of it's with some of the embargoes that we've had with them on the AI chips, but recently they've been able to start developing their own version of our chips and like that. So they're going to catch up with us there. So one of the things though that they're looking at with the F-47 is drone refuelers. So drone
The Navy
tankers.
has that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
going to really change things.
Yeah, the Navy's
Also,
been flying. I think that is called the something 25, and
Right.
and that's been around for years, and it works.
Yeah. So that
What it's going
that
to
will be
do is
interesting.
one of the things it's going to do is make it tougher for enemy intel that goes around spending a lot of time, as they should, trying to figure out where strategic tankers are located. Now you can have some of these drone tankers either pre-positioned or on a smaller platform aircraft carrier out to pick
Cargo
up some and do some refueling. It's great stuff.
Yeah, you can put a couple dozen of them on in a container ship, and
Yep.
without saying anything, and then all of a sudden, boom, up come dozens
Yeah.
of drones off the container ship. Whatever.
It
Yeah,
can
I
also
think
be
that-
done to us, but we're prepared to
That's
look
true.
for that.
Trying to build most
Mhm.
of the commercial shipping needs.
That's right.
But they
That's
need
right.
customers. They can't need new ships. And they have no control over the ships after the customer gets them. And if the customer is careful, they will root out any possible, spy.
What a great
Yeah.
segue into tariff war. Are we moving from air war to tariff war now? Okay. Never mind.
The
So-
that's going to be one of the big question marks that will only get answered in a crisis. How far have the Chinese gone in infiltrating Western, internet networks, military networks, and the capability to compromise them? Every once in a while, we discover something that, oh God, it's been there for years, item. But then again, we do it to the Chinese. So like I say, you never find out these things. What's actually happening is all this war, and nobody wants a war. So let's just speculate away.
Right. Now, one of the things that
Yeah, well, look.
go ahead,
I was
Austin.
going to add something there that if we were going to use it, I don't want to use India and Pakistan as something that is determinative about a U.S. or U.S. allied war with China, because there are a lot of things that the United States, Japan, South Korea, what a U.S. coalition versus the Chinese and the Western Pacific would bring to bear in the first 20 minutes of a war, assuming both sides are watching each other in a buildup of tensions, and that includes something that's it's 2 or 3 years away, but it's coming close. The hypersonic missiles that the Army
Right.
began developing, and then there's a naval version of them, and precision targeting and the like, and the Chinese are not getting a free shot. Yeah, that's the thing. They're not going to be getting free shots off of their coast like they thought they were. And that's where our, Sun Tzu says the best strategy is to attack the enemy strategy. That's what the United States is up to right now, along with Japan and Australia and South Korea. We're prepared to attack their strategy of a bastion along their coastline to keep our carriers in the Eastern Pacific. We've come up with some things that change that, and then we've got aircraft that can penetrate. I'll move on from there.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we can probably close with is all of this is really expensive. The F-47 is estimated to be over 300 million a copy. The Air Force thinks they want to build 185 of them. That's a lot of money. We don't know how much the Chinese are going to have to invest in theirs. So,
with China, you always have to keep an eye on the economy. Their
Right.
economy is fragile. For thousands of years, they were a continental power. They didn't care what happened out over the border. But now they depend on trade. And if that trade is disrupted and puts a lot of Chinese out of work, the thousands of year old empire has another civil war or uprising or basically a government collapse. They're very much aware of that. And I think that really imposes a sense of caution in whatever they might want to do.
Austin.
No, I completely agree with that. But nevertheless, you have to look at what the Chinese are doing. And I mean, we do this all the time on the strategy page. I do it in the column I write for Creator Syndicate. Is that what are they doing? And they're pushing south towards Singapore. They're putting economic pressure on virtually everyone in the world. They're trying to. That's another subject. They've temporarily quit trying to muscle Vietnam, but the impetus remains there. And then they've opened up the northern front, saying they're a near Arctic power. And of course, if I were the Russians, I'd assume that means they've got their eyes on Siberia, which I have written about numerous times, and Jim and I've talked about. So you have to prepare
Or Greenland
being aggressive.
Well, Eastern
you have to
Russia
prepare for their aggression.
used to be Chinese, and now they're talking about that.
right.
Well, Jim, they were talking about that a little bit, even in the late '60s, in those little battles on that river in Siberia. I mean, it's
a lot of Vostok was Chinese much longer than it's been Russian.
And they point out that the Bolsheviks in 21 or 22 said they were going to give it back to them. They didn't.
You can't trust the Russians.
Yeah.
Do I ever agree with that?
I think President Trump has been figuring that out the hard way.
Yeah.
Trump's doing very well. He's a quick learner, and then he has full of surprise.
Wait a minute, guys. Give him credit for this. He set up that he can make the argument that I gave Putin every opportunity, and he did. He did, and that's a heck of a lot of diplomatic capital. So
because he puts heavy pressure on the Russian oil exports, which he can do with tariffs. Apparently, that's his new toy, and he's been doing a lot with it. But he can use that to disrupt Russian oil sales and exports. And just think what that does to Russia.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of why I came up. That's kind of why I came up with that economic Nagasaki title on this week's. It's clickbait, but nevertheless, Jim, I paid attention to your analysis of Russia's oil dependence for really decades, and it's all that's their cash cow. And what Trump's come up with, there are a lot of ways to fiddle with it, but it really is a strangulation move, and we'll see if it works.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll end
leave
it
it there, guys.
Yeah. We'll talk to you next time.
From air power to oil power. Yeah. All right.
Right.